What's going on, guys? Got another knife review here for you. Today we have the Custom Knife Factory from Russia. This is the Alexey Konygin collaboration. This is the Decepticon version 1. For those of you guys who grew up in the 80s and had a love for Transformers, Megatron, Decepticon, this knife absolutely reminds me of that. Very robotic, very machine-like. Just an awesome knife. It just makes you kind of reminisce of those times. This is a knife that kind of hit the knife scene, I want to say at Blade 2014, but even before that, there was a guy, if you guys aren't following him, his name is Ernie, E-R-N-I 0066. He's a Russian knife collector. Just has a phenomenal, amazing knife collection, especially with makers from Russia, but really, makers from all over. He's got all kinds of knives. But he showed off this knife, on his YouTube channel. It wasn't this variation. It was actually a little bit different. Right now, as of January 2015, Custom Knife Factory is now offering the Decepticon version 2, which has slightly more curves. The spine dips a little bit more. There's not as pronounced of a grind on the knife. Everything is bead blasted on the knife. Again, extra curves, and it has a milled clip, although it looks like a spring clip on there. Anyway, getting back into this knife, so that knife was, I think, sold at Blade 2014, and then afterwards, whether it was, I can't remember if it was at the USN Gathering or another knife show, then all of a sudden this started to hit the scene, and then everyone kind of found out it was offered by Mike at Custom Knife Factory, and everyone just went ape crazy over this knife, and rightfully so. I mean, this is an absolute jaw-dropping knife, absolute beautiful knife. Definitely a feat of engineering that honestly I have yet to see a knife that has this kind of amazing engineering and fit and finish and attention to detail, especially with all these cutouts. What you have on this knife is a 4 1/8 inch blade of S35VN. Full titanium handle. These are 5 pieces of titanium, or 6 pieces if you include the clip. All milled, all 3D milled on here. You have titanium backspacer, which has a lanyard hole at the end of the spine. Pretty good, chamfering on here that's bead blasted. Sorry about the blurriness there. Bead blasted chamfering on the sides. Comes with this little edge right here. Then you have 2 liners, again with holes, and I don't know if you call that a fuller, but these grooves that are in there, again chamfered all around here, perfectly symmetrically. All milled by machine and whatnot. You got little divots in there just to aid, facilitate sliding a lanyard in there. Everything's just like perfectly in there. I don't know if this is just saving weight or it's just part of the aesthetics, And then on the outside scale, you have a satin finished flats on here as well as on the clip, and then bead blasted around. It's all contoured around here. Even on the flipper, you have, it's skeletonized, not to save weight, but just for the aesthetics and the appeal of the knife. It's pretty amazing. On the blade, you have what's it called? A flat grind on here, and then to the tanto it's also a flat grind, not convex ground. And then on the flats here, it's all satin finished. Then you have, again, stonewash on the swedge. You have this little cutout here, again, just for the aesthetics. And then you have the I don't know if you'd really call it a thumb hole. You can deploy it with this thumb hole if you really wanted to, but even on this thumb hole, when you look at the details, it looks kind of like a stonewash, but it's actually like a little micro orange peel finish on there. So all this is done by machine. Again, designed by Alexey Konygin, and so Custom Knife Factory right now is offering so many cool offerings from Russian makers that usually we wouldn't have a chance to ever get. The only one before that was Shirogorov. And we know like how popular Shirogorov knives are, and rightfully so. On like almost unparalleled smoothness, when it comes to the knife world. I have yet to really have a knife that's as smooth. I mean, there's some that are like almost as smooth, but if the Shirogorov's a 10, everything kind of falls at like a 9.5, 9.6, in terms of smoothness. The way they polish the pivot, the way the bearings just run perfectly in there, it's seriously like glass. So, but the Decepticon is not far behind. It's got a heavier blade, does fall on its own, but you do have to give that little shake, whereas the Shirogorov, I just feel like it literally just falls every time, on its own weight and whatnot. So overall length on this knife is about 9.5 inches, so it's a big knife, and it's a thick knife as well. I don't have my Hoback A15 here, but it's as thick as a Hoback A15. I think it's actually thicker. If you include the clip and whatnot. So you get a full, grip on this knife. You might think with all the skeletonizing and whatnot that it would make for like a thin knife. It kind of gives off that vibe. But this is a full size, like it's a big knife. You even got like a little choil here to choke up a little bit on. No jimping to speak of on this knife. So at the same time, it's not slippery, given there's all these holes, there's all these places for your fingers to fall in to grip on. And that's one of the it looks awesome, but that's one of the minor gripes that I have about this knife. There's a lot of sharp edges on here. So on the back of the handle, these all catch on your finger if you're gripping on it. Back here as well, you can really scratch yourself pretty bad. So especially like if you're reaching in your pocket or whatever, there's ways to just scratch yourself. You're not going to draw blood or anything. Front edges as well, there's little sharp edges right here that can catch your skin and whatnot. Not a huge deal, not a deal breaker as well. I mean, when you look at it in frame, it's just such an awesome looking knife. It's got a steel insert as well, so it's going to prolong the life of your lock. And it's as solid as a rock. I mean, there's no lock rock side to side or anything whatsoever. Inside you have bearings as well. One of the other cool features about this knife, if you can see, so like right there, you see the little stop pins that are, little stop pins that are embedded in the blade that runs around the diameter, not the diameter, yeah, is it diameter? No. Around the circumference, there you go, around the circumference of the frame, and then it's hidden inside as it nests itself and locks itself up. So kind of like the Richard Rogers 4F, with that hidden stop pin feature. I think that's just a really cool, or blade stop feature. It's a really cool thing, that you don't have these little nubs hanging out and whatever. So very cool feature that I like about the Decepticon as well. Before I go on, just a really quick size comparison. I got some knives out here that I deliberately put them out here to compare with, either because of price or because of machining technique and whatever. And of course the Sebenza is everything. I compare that to everything. So so if you guys have been following, just a bunch of the knife guys like Jim Skelton and a number of other knife reviewers on YouTube or on Instagram, you guys now know that this knife from Russia, from Custom Knife Factory, was $1,130. Right now, you can actually get them from the U.S. dealers like Knife Center, and I think GP Knives has them as well. So you can get them for $1,080, so $1,080. So you're talking about in the 4-digit price range. And keep in mind, this is a Midtech, and for this Midtech, with all the other Midtechs that we've been looking at, like the Hobacks or the David Mosier or the Graham, the Birch Midtechs, those are all outsourced to factories in the U.S. This is a Russian-made knife, and all these pieces are outsourced to China. So I know for before, like 2 years ago, even a year ago, if you were to hear that, you'd be like, heck no, there's no way, I'm going to get anything from China in terms of the quality control, especially paying $1,000+ for. I have to say, whatever factory they're using now in China is amazing. Their quality control is as good as, if not better, I don't know, than the Taiwan plant for Spyderco, and if not better than pretty much most or all of the U.S. factories. If I compare this Midtech, the fit and finish, to the Birch Midtech, even the Hoback Midtech, I love this knife right now, but yeah, in terms of smoothness, this is running on bearings and HRD. It's not anywhere as smooth as this knife. Now, does that justify a, how much, almost $700 premium on this knife? That's, I guess that's in the eye of the beholder. To me, I think with the engineering that's involved in here, all the pieces and whatnot, gosh, I want to say yes, because I think this knife is phenomenal, but honestly, I would say no. Like, I don't think it justifies a $1,100 price range. Nothing on here is hand ground, hand done. It's all machine. Again, this is hard to say because, say the Todd Begg Bodega. If I'm not mistaken, I think the blades are hand ground, or at least some of the blades are hand ground. So, so sometimes, I can almost justify, and most of the pieces are handled by Todd and his staff in Petaluma, but yeah, I don't know. I keep going back and forth with this. When I look at the SOCOM Delta, which is a $1,100, $1,200, $1,300 knife, this is all hand ground, hand polished, hand satin finished, by Tony Marfione. And you guys know Tony's grinds are almost unparalleled. I think he's got my favorite, grinds out there. With the titanium, the beta titanium frame, as compared to the production SOCOM Delta. This knife, with all the work that Tony put into it, I think is just, a phenomenal knife, even at that price range. The Rockset Shin that runs at $1,100, $1,200 as well. This one's got the YXR. I've never handled a knife on phosphor bronze washers, that runs as smooth as this knife, and there's so much hand polishing that goes into this knife, not just on the bevels, not just on the grinds, but on the pivot area and whatnot. There's a bushing inside. I believe that's what I was reading when I was looking at the Shin. That just makes this knife super smooth. Plus the heat treat and everything. At 67 Rockwell, it's just an amazing knife. Or something like this, the Brian Ty Nurk Tie. You've got skeletonized, very intricately skeletonized, frame. It's not a frame lock, but all these little milling jobs on here. It's all done by machine, just like the Decepticon. You even have anodizing on here, and even the lock is all part of, this knife. You get the fluting on the blade. It's a huge blade, 4-inch blade as well. And so this knife from Brian, I think, runs at 525 or 575 or something like that. And so, is this 2 times the knife of this? It's 2 times thicker, and maybe there's 2 times more material. So maybe you can justify that. The Shirogorov as well. We're talking about secondary prices right now for the Shirogorov at $800, $900. Is it worth it? Once you start justifying the price of the Shirogorov, honestly, I feel like, yeah, you could justify the price of the Decepticon. And really, that's what I think the debate is on this knife. There is nobody that's going to handle this knife that's going to be like, oh, this, you know, this knife's a piece of junk, or it's ugly. You know, I think everybody that's handled this knife or seen this knife thinks it's an absolute, you know, beautiful knife. You know, and Alexey, credit Alexey for designing such an amazing knife. The Decepticon 2 that is being offered from Knife Center as well as Custom Knife Factory, you know, runs at $880, which is, you know, substantially cheaper. $200 cheaper. It's actually a longer knife. You get more blade, but it's not quite as thick, and some of the materials are thinner. You know, the clip, again, it's looks like a spring clip, but it's actually a milled clip. The liners and everything are a little bit thinner. Everything's bead blasted, so you don't get the finishes. You know, you just, when you look at all the ways that it contrasts in the light, you know, it just looks absolutely amazing. So, you know what, I'm gonna change my opinion and say that it is worth it. You know, in terms of the kind of piece that it is, the kind of conversation it generates. This is truly a collector's piece, but at the same time, just such a, you know, it would be an awesome user as well. So anyway, that's my take on the Decepticon. I mean, I love this knife. It's such an awesome knife. The price makes me balk for sure. You know, spending anything in the 4 digits for that, you know, it just, it scares me, to be honest. But at the same time, you know, most of us at this stage of our knife collecting, we've all done it. Whether or not you can just spring for, you know, any knife whenever it comes out like that, and the fact that it's a Midtech, I don't know, that's your prerogative. So anyway, there's my take on the Alexey Konygin Custom Knife Factory Decepticon. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. As always, thanks again for watching. You guys take care, and I'll see you on the next vid.